Think about the feeling a musical work gives you. There are moments when a chord wraps around you like a warm blanket, giving you a sense of peace, a feeling that all is right in the world. And then there are other moments when a combination of notes creates tension, expectation, like the knot in your stomach just before the climax of a grand opera. That difference, that feeling of peace versus tension, isn't a matter of taste. It's pure physics. Let's start with the most fundamental concept, the sounds we perceive as restful, what in music we call consonance. When two notes sound pleasant together, it's because their vibrations in the air relate to each other in a very, very simple way.
Imagine the strings of a cello vibrating. If one vibrates at exactly twice the speed of the other, we have an octave. That's the most perfect interval that exists, so perfect that the notes almost sound like the same one. Their mathematical ratio is 2:1. Simple. Pure. Another foundational interval is the perfect fifth. It's that heroic, open sound you hear in grand orchestral fanfares. Its ratio is 3:2. Also very simple. Our brains are biologically wired to recognize and prefer simple patterns, to prefer order. When sound vibrations reach our ears in these clean proportions, the brain doesn't have to work hard. It interprets the sound as coherent, stable, and therefore beautiful. Now, this is where the story gets complicated, and it's the great problem of all Western music.
Imagine you're building a harpsichord in the 17th century. You start on one note, C, and you want all the other notes to sound perfectly in tune with it, using only those pure, simple mathematical ratios. You tune the G to be a perfect fifth above the C, 3:2. Then you tune the D to be a perfect fifth above the G, and so on. If you do this, everything sounds incredibly good at first, but only as long as you stay within the key for which you tuned it. The moment the composer modulates to a more distant key within the same piece, the result is a disaster. The notes that were once consonant now clash horribly. Why?
Because those perfect little ratios don't add up neatly into a closed circle. As you jump from one perfect fifth to the next, a tiny mathematical error accumulates, eventually becoming a gaping sonic chasm. It's like trying to build a perfect circle using only straight lines. It's a geometric impossibility. For centuries, instrument makers and theorists tried to solve this with different temperaments, which are simply various ways of distributing that unavoidable error. They were custom solutions that aimed to make the most common keys sound as good as possible, at the cost of making other keys practically unusable. Until eventually the solution that conquered the world arrived: equal temperament.
The idea is both simple and radical. It basically said, since the circle won't close on its own, we're going to force it. What they did was take the only truly pure interval, the octave, that 2:1 ratio, and mathematically divide it into 12 exactly equal semitones. This was a revolution. Suddenly, a piece could be performed in any key. A composer could move with complete harmonic freedom, exploring new worlds of expression. It's the system that governs the tuning of a modern concert piano and nearly every instrument in the orchestra. But, and this is a crucial but, a very high price was paid to achieve this.
In order for those 12 steps to be identical, every other interval had to be deliberately, albeit slightly, detuned. All of them. The perfect fifth, which should be a clean 3:2 ratio, is now a little bit smaller. The major third, the interval that defines whether a chord is major or minor, is noticeably sharper than its pure ratio dictates. That unavoidable error, instead of being hidden away, was spread like a fine, invisible dust across the entire musical fabric. The result is that all the music we listen to is, in a strictly physical sense, subtly out of tune. You may not notice it consciously, but your brain does. On a subconscious level, it's constantly perceiving that the relationships between the vibrations are not clean, not simple. There's a kind of background noise or harmonic static. It's like admiring a masterpiece of art through a window that isn't perfectly clean. You still see the art, but your visual system has to make an extra effort to process the image. That constant tension, That struggle to find the pure pattern is a form of dissonance. We've grown accustomed to it, but it's there, creating a low-level auditory fatigue. And here, we must talk about the neuroscience of perception. Why is this order so important to our brain? From an evolutionary standpoint, our brain is designed to constantly scan the environment for patterns. A predictable, orderly pattern signifies safety. The sound of ocean waves or wind in the trees are complex but coherent patterns. Conversely, an unpredictable, chaotic, or dissonant sound, like the snap of a twig in the night, sets off our internal alarms. It's a signal that something unexpected is happening and requires our attention. The subtle dissonance of equal temperament creates exactly that, a sonic environment that is never fully predictable for our deep auditory system. The brain, even without our awareness, has to dedicate a small but constant amount of cognitive resources to monitoring and processing this slight chaos.
When the brain perceives a perfect external order, like a sound based on pure ratios, it interprets the environment as safe and stable. That all is well signal switches off the surveillance system. It no longer needs to dedicate resources to analyzing the outside world. And that's when something magical happens. By freeing up that cognitive load, the brain can redirect 100% of its capacity to the task at hand. It can connect with deeper, more creative planes of thought because nothing is distracting it on a subconscious level. And this is precisely the reason MyEq.pro exists. We begin from a fundamental premise. Sound should not be a source of cognitive stress, but of cognitive release. Our goal is to create a sonic environment for you that possesses absolute purity and harmony, eliminating the foundational dissonance of the modern system. When we design our sessions, we sculpt the relationships between frequencies to be as close as possible to those simple mathematical proportions that your brain instinctively recognizes as safe and beautiful. We seek out that 3 to 2/5, that 2 to 1 octave. We tune every interval to be as pure as possible. In doing this, we lift that burden from your brain. Suddenly, it doesn't have to process a nearly correct sound. It receives a perfect, orderly, and predictable pattern. There is no interference, no harmonic noise. It's like finally cleaning that window and seeing the work of art with absolute clarity for the first time.
The brain interprets this coherence as an unequivocal signal of safety, allowing it to deactivate its alert systems and release those precious resources for deep concentration, meditation, or creative thought. In short, we eliminate the subtle chaos of modern tuning to offer you a pure sound. A sound that your brain doesn't have to struggle to interpret, but simply recognizes as a safe, beautiful, and above all, a profoundly harmonious environment. A sonic sanctuary for the mind.